Raymond sat beside Natasha's hospital bed, watching the steady rise and fall of her chest. The doctors had assured him that she was stable now, but the fear of losing her had shaken him to the core. Natasha had suffered a heart attack, leaving him juggling his job, hospital visits, and taking care of their two daughters, Naya and Aliyah. He felt overwhelmed. The girls, only 6 and 8, didn't fully understand why their mother wasn't home. Every morning, Raymond would drop them off at school before heading to work, and every night he rushed to the hospital after picking them up. The weight of responsibilities pressed heavily on him, and his exhaustion began to show. A colleague at work suggested hiring a maid, someone to take care of the house and look after the children while he focused on Natasha and his job. Raymond hesitated at first, but with no family nearby, he realized he had no choice. Charity arrived a week later. She was young, cheerful and efficient, quickly stepping in to help manage the house. She cooked, cleaned and took care of Naya and Aliyah, who immediately warmed up to her. Her presence eased the burden on Raymond, and for the first time in weeks, he felt a bit of relief. "Don't worry, Mr. Raymond. I'll take care of everything here. You can focus on your wife and your work," Charity said with a smile one evening as he prepared to leave for the hospital. Her kindness reassured him, and he was grateful for her help. As the days passed, Raymond found himself depending more and more on Charity. She was always there when he needed her, whether it was to help with the kids or simply listen to his worries. Slowly, a bond began to form between them, one that Raymond hadn't expected. One night, after putting the girls to bed, Raymond sat at the kitchen table, exhausted from the day. Charity came in with a cup of tea. "You have been working too hard," she said softly, placing the tea in front of him. Raymond sighed. "I don't have much of a choice." Charity's eyes softened as she sat down beside him. "You're a good man, Raymond. Not many would handle everything like you have." Her words lingered in the air, and for the first time, Raymond noticed the way her eyes lingered on him. The way her voice was just a little softer than before. He brushed off the thought, pushing it away as nothing more than gratitude. But in the weeks that followed, things began to change. Raymond tried to ignore the growing tension between him and Charity. She was just the maid after all, hired to help him through a tough time. But there were moments, small glances, a touch that lingered a second too long, that made him question what was really happening. One evening, after putting the girls to bed, Charity found Raymond alone in the living room. She sat next to him on the couch, a little closer than usual. "You've done so much for your family, Raymond. You deserve to rest," Charity whispered. Her hand lightly touched his, and Raymond felt a rush of warmth. He knew it was wrong. Natasha was still in the hospital, and here he was, sitting too close to the maid who had come to help them. But the loneliness and stress had worn him down, and he didn't pull away when Charity leaned in, her breath warm against his cheek. They kissed. It was a moment of weakness, but it didn't stop there. Over the next few days, they started sleeping together in secret. Raymond was torn between guilt and desire. Charity made him feel needed, something he hadn't felt in weeks with Natasha being sick. At first, he convinced himself it was just temporary, a way to cope with everything that was happening. But Charity was falling deeper. She wasn't just helping him anymore. She wanted more. And Raymond, though he tried to ignore it, could see the signs. Meanwhile, Natasha's condition improved. The doctors decided she could go home soon. Raymond felt a mixture of relief and panic. Natasha was his wife, the mother of his children. And yet here he was, tangled in a secret affair with Charity. The day Natasha was discharged from the hospital, Raymond felt a lump in his throat. He hadn't told Charity that Natasha was coming home. When they arrived, Charity's face betrayed her surprise and something darker. Disappointment. "Natasha, you're back. We've missed you," Charity said with a tight smile. Natasha, weak but happy to be home, didn't notice the tension in the air. She hugged her daughters tightly, glad to be with her family again. But Charity stood in the background, her smile fading as she watched the happy reunion. That night, after the house had quieted, Charity found Raymond alone in the kitchen. Her voice was low, cold. "So what now?" she asked, her eyes hard. Raymond didn't know how to answer. He had made a terrible mistake, and now, with Natasha home, everything felt even more wrong. But Charity wasn't ready to let go. Not yet. Raymond stood in the kitchen, staring out the window, his mind a whirl of guilt and confusion. The reunion with Natasha had been bittersweet. He was happy she was back home, but her fragile health weighed on him. The doctor's words echoed in his mind. Natasha is still weak. She'll need a lot of rest and care, no heavy work, and definitely no stress. It hit him hard when the doctor added, "You should also know that physical intimacy might not be possible for a while. Natasha's heart is too weak for that kind of strain." Raymond swallowed hard. He hadn't thought much about it before, but the reality of it made him feel trapped. Natasha wouldn't be able to do anything around the house, let alone fulfill any of the closeness they once shared as a couple. He wanted to tell Charity to leave, to end the affair before it caused more damage. But the thought of going back to the stress of balancing everything alone, without someone to take care of the kids and house, made him hesitate. That night, after Natasha had gone to bed, Raymond found himself alone in the living room again. Charity quietly entered and sat beside him, her eyes searching his face. "You haven't spoken to me since she came home," Charity whispered. "What's going on in your head, Raymond?" Raymond sighed. "I was going to tell you to leave, Charity. Whatever we've been doing, it's wrong. Natasha is my wife, and she needs me now more than ever." Charity's face hardened for a moment, but then she softened, leaning closer to him. "I know you're feeling guilty, but you need me, Raymond. She can't help you with the kids, with the house, and we both know she can't. Take care of your other needs." Raymond's chest tightened. He knew what Charity meant, and deep down, part of him didn't want to lose what they had. Natasha's health meant that their marriage would be different now. He wouldn't have the closeness he craved with his wife. Charity, on the other hand, offered him everything Natasha couldn't: support, affection, and intimacy. Raymond glanced toward the hallway, where Natasha was resting in their bedroom. He loved her, but the situation was far from ideal. After a long pause, he spoke again, his voice low and conflicted. "I need you to stay, for the house and the kids. Natasha isn't strong enough to handle everything." Charity's eyes lit up, a small smile creeping onto her face. "I'll take care of everything, Raymond. You don't have to worry." Raymond nodded slowly, feeling the weight of his decision settle on his shoulders. He had crossed a line, and now there was no going back. The next few weeks passed in a strange routine. Natasha spent most of her time resting in bed, too weak to do much around the house. Charity took over completely, managing the cooking, cleaning, and caring for Naya and Aaliyah. Raymond continued to go to work, but when he came home, it was Charity who greeted him with a warm smile and a comforting presence. In the evenings, after putting the girls to bed, Charity and Raymond would often end up together. What started as stolen moments had become a regular part of their nights. Raymond knew it was wrong, but it was easy to justify when Natasha was so fragile, unable to fulfill her role as a wife. One evening after dinner, Natasha asked Raymond, "How are things with the girls?" "I feel like I haven't been able to do anything for them lately," Raymond smiled softly. "They're fine. Charity's been great with them, handling everything." Natasha sighed. "I'm so grateful she is." One bright morning, the house was quiet as Natasha had left for her routine checkup at the hospital. Raymond sat at the kitchen table, sipping coffee while Charity moved around, tidying up the dishes. The girls, Naya and Aaliyah, were still asleep, giving Raymond and Charity a rare moment alone. Charity walked up behind him and placed her hands gently on his shoulders, leaning down to kiss his neck. At first, Raymond resisted, glancing toward the hallway, but with Natasha gone and the house so peaceful, he allowed himself to relax. "We shouldn't," Raymond muttered half-heartedly, but he didn't pull away. Charity smiled, her lips brushing his ear. "No one's here. It's just us, Raymond." Giving in to the moment, he stood up and kissed her, feeling that same rush of excitement and guilt that always followed their stolen moments. As their kiss deepened, neither of them noticed the soft footsteps approaching the kitchen. Naya, sleepy and rubbing her eyes, had woken up earlier than usual. She shuffled out of bed and headed to the kitchen to ask her father if she could have breakfast. As she turned the corner, her small figure froze at the doorway. Her eyes widened in shock as she saw her father kissing Charity, the maid she had once adored. "Daddy?" Naya's voice trembled, barely more than a whisper. Raymond and Charity jumped apart, startled by the unexpected interruption. Raymond's face went pale as he saw his daughter standing there, her wide eyes filled with confusion and hurt. He quickly stepped away from Charity, running his hand through his hair, trying to find the right words. "Naya? Sweetie?" Raymond stammered, walking toward her. "It's not what you think." Naya took a step back, tears welling up in her eyes. "But you were kissing her. That's wrong. Mommy's your wife." Raymond knelt down to her level, his heart pounding in his chest. "Naya, listen to me. What you saw was a mistake. It shouldn't have happened. Please don't tell your mother, okay? She's not strong enough to handle it right now. It would only hurt her." Naya stood still, looking between her father and Charity, who remained silent, standing by the counter with a guilty look on her face. Naya had always liked Charity. She thought of her as someone kind, someone who helped her family. But now everything felt different. "Promise me, Naya, please don't tell your mum," Raymond begged, his voice shaking. It was a mistake." Naya, confused and scared, nodded slowly. But inside, something changed. She didn't feel the same about her father or Charity anymore. Her heart felt heavy with anger and betrayal, even though she didn't fully understand why. "I won't tell," Naya whispered, tears slipping down her cheeks. Raymond sighed in relief and hugged her tightly. "Thank you, sweetheart. I love you. I'm so sorry." But Naya didn't hug him back. She pulled away and ran back to her room, closing the door behind her. She sat on her bed, hugging her knees to her chest, trying to make sense of what she had just seen. Charity, the person she once admired, was now someone she couldn't stand to look at. And her father. He had lied to her, he had done something wrong, and now he was asking her to keep secrets from her mother. From that day on, Naya's feelings toward Charity shifted. She no longer greeted her with smiles or ran to her for help. Instead, she avoided her, keeping her distance. When Charity tried to talk to her or help her with something, Naya would turn away, her small face hardening with anger she didn't know how to express. Charity noticed the change too. She tried to brush it off at first, thinking Naya would forget what had happened. But the little girl's coldness was impossible to ignore. It made her uneasy, a constant reminder that the child had seen more than she should have. One afternoon, as Charity served lunch, Naya didn't even look at her. She pushed the food around her plate, silent and distant. Natasha, still recovering and weak, sat at the table, noticing her daughter's unusual behavior. "Naya, what's wrong? You've been so quiet lately," Natasha asked gently, concern in her eyes. "Is something bothering you?" Naya shook her head quickly. "Nothing's wrong, Mom." But Natasha could see it in her daughter's face. Something was wrong. Naya had always been open and cheerful, but now she seemed withdrawn, keeping something inside. Natasha reached over and touched Naya's hand. "You can tell me anything, sweetheart. You know that, right?" Naya's heart raced. She wanted to tell her mom everything, to explain what she had seen in the kitchen that morning. But then she remembered her father's pleading words, the way he had begged her to keep it a secret. She couldn't tell her mum, not when she was still so weak. What if it made her sick again? So Naya just nodded, keeping her lips tightly sealed. "I'm fine, Mom. Really." But Natasha wasn't convinced. She looked over at Raymond, who was sitting silently at the table, his eyes not meeting hers. Charity was in the kitchen, washing dishes, but Natasha could feel the tension hanging in the air. Something was wrong in her house, and she couldn't shake the feeling that everyone was keeping it from her. As days went by, Naya's dislike for Charity grew stronger. Every time she saw her father talking to Charity, her stomach twisted with anger. She wanted to scream, to tell her mom everything, but she held it inside, her young heart burdened with secrets too big for her to carry. One afternoon, Naya sat by the window deep in thought. She couldn't shake the heavy feeling inside her ever since she saw her father and Charity together. Every day, the weight of the secret grew bigger, making her feel more confused and upset. As she stared outside, her younger sister Alia came up to her. "Naya, what's wrong?" Alia asked softly, sitting down beside her. "You've been acting so strange lately. You don't even talk to Charity anymore. Did she do something to you?" Naya hesitated, looking at her little sister's curious face. She didn't want to drag Alia into this mess, but she also couldn't keep it bottled up anymore. Maybe Aaliyah would understand. Aaliyah, you have to promise not to tell anyone, Naya whispered, her voice shaky. Especially not Mom. She's too sick, and it will hurt her. Aaliyah nodded eagerly. I promise, Naya. I won't tell anyone. Taking a deep breath, Naya finally spoke, her voice low and filled with worry. I saw Daddy kissing Charity one morning after Mom went to the hospital. They were in the kitchen, like they were in love. Aaliyah's eyes widened in shock. What? But Daddy and Charity? That's not right. Mommy loves Daddy. I know, Naya said, her voice breaking. I told Daddy it was wrong, but he made me promise not to tell Mom. He said it was a mistake, but I don't know. Charity is acting so strange around him, and I don't like it. Aaliyah frowned, feeling the same confusion and hurt her sister felt. She didn't know what to say, but the idea of keeping such a big secret made her feel uncomfortable. Naya begged her again to keep quiet, and Aaliyah nodded, though her mind was racing with thoughts. Later that evening, while Natasha rested in her room, Aaliyah couldn't hold the secret any longer. She walked over to her mother, who was sitting up in bed reading a book. Mom? Aaliyah said quietly, standing by the bedside. Natasha looked up and smiled. Yes, sweetheart? Do you need something? Aaliyah bit her lip, feeling nervous. She knew Naya wouldn't want her to say anything, but the truth was burning inside her, and she couldn't keep it in. Mom, I need to tell you something. Something about Daddy and Charity. Natasha put her book down, her face suddenly serious. What is it, Aaliyah? What's going on? Aaliyah hesitated for a moment, but then she blurted everything out. Naya told me that she saw Daddy kissing Charity in the kitchen when you were at the hospital. And I've noticed how Charity acts strange whenever Daddy is around. She looks at him, like she loves him. Natasha's heart sank. For a moment she couldn't believe what she was hearing. But as she looked into her daughter's sincere eyes, she knew Aaliyah wasn't lying. A deep anger and sadness began to well up inside her. Are you sure, Aaliyah? Natasha asked, her voice trembling. You're not mistaken. Aaliyah nodded. Yes, Mom. Naya saw it, and I believe her. Natasha's face tightened with pain. She had suspected something was wrong, especially with how distant Naya had been acting, but she never imagined it would be this. Her heart ached as the truth settled in. Her husband, the man she trusted, had betrayed her with the maid. That night, when Raymond came home from work, Natasha waited for him in the living room. Her hands were shaking, but she was determined to confront him. As soon as he walked through the door, she spoke, her voice cold and sharp. Raymond, we need to talk. Raymond looked at her, sensing that something was wrong. He walked over and sat down across from her, his face showing concern. What's going on, Natasha? Natasha took a deep breath, trying to control her anger. Aaliyah told me everything. She said Naya saw you and Charity kissing in the kitchen. Is it true? Raymond's face went pale. He opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. He knew there was no point in lying anymore. Slowly, he nodded. It was a mistake, Raymond said quietly, his voice filled with guilt. It only happened once. I didn't mean for it to happen, Natasha. Natasha's eyes filled with tears. A mistake? You betrayed me, Raymond. How could you do this to me? Especially when I was in the hospital, fighting to get better for you and the kids. Raymond hung his head, ashamed of what he had done. I know I hurt you. I'm so sorry. But Charity, she's been helping us so much. You're too weak to handle everything, Natasha. She's been taking care of the house, the kids. Without her, I don't know how we will manage. Natasha's tears fell freely now, her heart breaking. So what are you saying? That we need her? That you won't send her away? Raymond sighed. I can't send her away, Natasha. She's the one holding everything together. We need her. You need her, even if you don't want to admit it. You're not strong enough to do all the hard work, and finding someone else who is trustworthy and good with the girls isn't easy. Natasha shook her head, her mind racing with frustration and betrayal. So you want me to just accept this? To keep her here, even though she's ruined our family? Raymond reached out, but Natasha pulled away, not wanting his touch. I'm not asking you to accept what happened, he said softly, but I'm asking you to understand that we need her here. I've looked for other help, but it's not easy to find someone good. Charity knows the house, she knows the kids. It's hard to find someone like her. Natasha sat in silence for a long time, trying to process everything. Deep down, she knew Raymond was right. She was still too weak to manage the household on her own. But the thought of keeping Charity around, knowing what had happened, filled her with anger and despair. "I can't believe this," Natasha whispered, wiping away her tears. "I trusted you, Raymond. I trusted her. And now I'm supposed to live under the same roof as her, like nothing happened." Raymond didn't answer. He didn't know what to say. The damage had been done, and now they were both left to pick up the pieces. Natasha couldn't stand it any longer. She knew what had been going on and could no longer keep quiet. One quiet morning, while the girls were at school and Raymond was at work, she decided it was time to confront Charity. Natasha entered the kitchen where Charity was cleaning, and without any greeting, she spoke, her voice full of anger. "I know everything, Charity. I know what you did with Raymond." Charity didn't even look surprised. She only glanced at Natasha with a calm expression. "So you found out," she said, almost like it didn't matter. "Well, at least now you know I'm the one who's been helping your family. You should thank me." "Thank you?" Natasha felt her anger rising. "You want me to thank you for destroying my family? You've come into my home and broken everything apart." Charity smirked slightly. "Natasha, let's be honest. You weren't around when your family needed you. Raymond needed someone strong, someone who could actually help with the children and the house. I've been here for him in ways you couldn't." Natasha felt her heart break at Charity's words, but she refused to back down. "You think you've helped? You've only caused harm. I hate you, Charity. I want you gone forever, far away from my family. You're nothing but a home wrecker." Charity only shrugged, completely unaffected by Natasha's anger. "I'm the one keeping things together here. You need me here, whether you like it or not. Raymond knows it too." Natasha's voice shook with emotion. "I don't care what you think. This is my family, and you don't belong here." Charity gave her a challenging look. "We'll see, won't we? Because as far as I can tell, I'm the one doing everything around here now." Natasha felt her strength slipping, but her resolve remained strong. She wasn't about to give up, no matter how powerless she felt. This was her family, and she wasn't going to let Charity take it from her. From the moment Natasha had confronted Charity, things began to change. Charity had no intention of letting Natasha get in her way. She started adding small amounts of poison to Natasha's soup, just enough to weaken her over time. Every meal that Natasha ate left her feeling more drained, but no one could tell what was wrong. Natasha became weaker each day, barely able to get out of bed. Raymond grew worried as he watched his wife's health decline. Natasha had once been strong, but now she seemed too fragile even to stand. Soon things became so serious that Raymond had no choice but to rush her to the hospital again. The doctors ran tests, and after a long wait, they returned with heavy news. Raymond felt a deep sadness wash over him as he sat in the doctor's office. "I'm afraid your wife's kidneys are failing," the doctor said, looking at Raymond with sympathy. "She needs an urgent transplant. Without it, she has only a few months left." The news shattered Raymond's heart. Natasha, the mother of his children, was fighting for her life. The thought of losing her filled him with fear. He went home that evening, feeling more helpless than ever. Charity was waiting for him when he returned, her face carefully set in a mask of concern. "What did the doctor say?" Charity asked, pretending to be worried, though inside she was pleased that her plan was working. Raymond sighed heavily, sitting down and running his hands over his face. "The doctor said Natasha's kidneys are failing. If she doesn't get a transplant soon, she might not make it." Charity placed a hand on his shoulder, pretending to be supportive. "I'm so sorry, Raymond. I can't imagine how hard this must be for you." Raymond looked at her, eyes full of sorrow. "She's so weak, Charity. She doesn't deserve this. I don't know what I'd do without her." Charity hid her satisfaction as she watched him. She knew this was her chance to finally get closer to Raymond. She leaned in, her voice soft and comforting. "You don't have to go through this alone, Raymond. I'm here for you." Raymond looked up, feeling comforted by her words. In his sadness, he found himself drawn to her, and Charity took advantage of the moment. She moved closer, wrapping her arms around him. One thing led to another, and before he knew it, he was pulled into her embrace, lost in a mix of confusion and grief. Charity seduced him, leading him to do something he would later regret. But in that moment, he was blinded by sadness and the comfort she offered. Weeks passed, and Natasha remained in the hospital, her condition worsening. Charity continued to take control of the house, growing bolder in her intentions. Raymond was torn between worry for his wife and the complicated secret relationship he had with Charity. One evening, as Raymond returned from the hospital, he found Charity waiting in the living room. She had an unusually serious expression on her face, and as he entered, she stood up, her hands folded tightly in front of her. Raymond noticed the look on her face and felt a pang of unease. "Charity, is everything okay?" he asked, his voice cautious. Charity took a deep breath, her eyes not meeting his. "Raymond, there's something you need to know. I'm pregnant." Raymond froze, the weight of her words hitting him like a wave. He couldn't believe what he had just heard. "Pregnant," he repeated, his voice barely a whisper. Charity nodded, her eyes shining with a mixture of satisfaction and anxiety. "Yes, Raymond, I'm carrying your child." Raymond's mind raced with confusion and panic. The situation had just become much more complicated. His wife was lying in a hospital bed, fighting for her life, and now Charity, the woman he'd allowed too close, was pregnant with his child. He felt trapped, not knowing how to react or what to say. "Charity, this isn't what I wanted," Raymond stammered. "Natasha is still my wife. She's the mother of my children, and I never thought things would go this far." Charity's expression hardened. "But they did, Raymond, and now there's a child involved. What do you plan to do?" Raymond felt the pressure weighing down on him. He knew he couldn't just abandon Charity now that she was carrying his child, but he also couldn't betray Natasha further. He was caught between two impossible choices, each one hurting the people he cared about. He looked at Charity, his mind filled with regret and confusion. "I don't know, Charity. I need time to think. This is a lot to handle." Charity crossed her arms, her eyes steely. "There's no more time, Raymond. I need an answer. I can't raise this child in hiding, pretending like none of this happened. Either you stand by me and this baby, or I'll leave and raise this child alone. But don't think I'll just disappear quietly." Raymond felt the walls closing in on him. He didn't want to lose his family, but he also knew that he had made a serious mistake that had consequences he couldn't escape. Charity's stare was unyielding. "It's time to decide, Raymond. Are you with me or not?" Raymond didn't answer, lost in the impossible choice before him. He could only stand there, silent, as the weight of his actions came crashing down. Natasha lay in her hospital bed, thinking about everything that had been happening. She felt hurt and sad. She had warned Raymond not to get too close to Charity, but it seemed like he wasn't listening. Every day she felt worried about what was happening at home. She picked up her phone, took a deep breath, and called Raymond. Her heart was beating fast. She knew she needed to talk to him about what was going on. When Raymond answered, Natasha kept her voice calm, though she was feeling a storm of emotions. "Raymond, we need to talk about Charity. Is everything okay?" Raymond sounded a little worried. "No, it's not okay," Natasha said softly but firmly. "I heard you're spending a lot of time with her, and it's hurting me. I thought you'd be careful, especially while I'm here in the hospital." Raymond was silent for a moment. "I'm just trying to keep things normal for the girls," he said. "Normal? Spending time with another woman isn't normal, Raymond. The girls need their father, not someone else," Natasha said, trying to make him understand. "I'm doing my best to get better, but I need to know you're taking care of our family." There was another pause, then Raymond replied, "I never wanted to hurt you, Natasha. I'll be more careful. I promise." After they ended the call, Natasha lay back on her pillow, her heart still heavy, but feeling a little better. She wanted to believe Raymond would keep his promise, but she also knew she had to be strong. After weeks of waiting and hoping, Natasha's surgery was finally successful. The doctors were pleased with how everything went, and there was a spark of hope in the air. Raymond and the girls were relieved, feeling that everything would soon return to normal. But the very next day, something went wrong. Natasha slipped into a coma. The doctors told Raymond it was a rare complication. Natasha's body was too weak, and she needed more time to heal. They couldn't say when she would wake up. Raymond sat by her bedside, holding her hand. The girls were too young to fully understand what had happened, but they sensed the worry in their father's face. Each day they would visit the hospital, whispering to their mother, telling her about their day, hoping their voices would reach her somehow. At night, Raymond would sit alone, remembering Natasha's last words to him on the phone. How she had wanted him to be strong for their family. He made a silent promise to her that he would try his best to protect their daughters until she came back to them. When Raymond got home that evening, he barely had a chance to sit down before Charity started talking. Her face was serious and her tone sharp. She told him that it was time to make a choice about Natasha. She didn't want him to keep visiting Natasha at the hospital anymore, especially since she'd been in a coma for a while now. Charity's words were cold and direct. She told Raymond that if he didn't agree to take Natasha off life support, she would leave him. She even said she'd end her pregnancy if he didn't listen. Her words were like ice, and Raymond felt his heart sink. He didn't know what to say. Raymond still loved Natasha, and deep down he held on to the hope that one day she would wake up and come back to him and their children. But now Charity was demanding he move on, to give up on Natasha, and to think only of a new life with her. As he sat in silence, Raymond felt torn. His mind was racing with worry and sadness. He thought of his daughters, Aliyah and Naya, who missed their mother so much. He thought of Natasha, who had been by his side for so long, and all the memories they shared. And now he didn't know what to do. Charity's voice snapped him back to the present. "Raymond, if you don't choose now, I'll make the choice myself," she threatened, her tone cold and final. Raymond knew he couldn't make such a decision in a hurry, but the pressure from Charity was weighing heavily on him. He was trapped between his hopes for Natasha's recovery and Charity's ultimatum, and he had no idea how to make it all right. As time went on, Charity's behavior toward Aliyah and Naya changed completely. She was harsh, especially with Aliyah, who had a bold spirit and sometimes stood up for herself. Charity seemed set on making Aliyah's life as hard as possible. One afternoon, while Raymond was away, Charity called Aliyah into the kitchen and pointed at the large pile of dirty dishes in the sink. She told Aliyah to wash them all by hand, not allowing her to use the dishwasher. Aliyah's hands hurt as she scrubbed each dish, but she didn't complain. She knew better than to argue with Charity. When Aliyah finished, Charity wasn't done with her. She ordered her to sweep and mop the floors, clean the bathroom, and even cook dinner. The chores piled up, and by the time she was done, Aliyah was exhausted. But Charity still looked at her with a cold glare, as if she hadn't done enough. Aliyah wanted to tell her father, but every time she thought about it, she remembered Charity's warning. "If you say anything to your father, you'll be sorry. You'll wish you'd kept quiet." Aliyah was scared, but she refused to show it. She stayed quiet and kept her feelings to herself, hoping that one day her father would notice that something was wrong. Raymond came home that evening with a heavy heart. He sat on the couch, thinking about everything Charity had said earlier. The idea of her aborting the pregnancy worried him, but he knew Natasha's health was fragile. Since her surgery, she hadn't woken up, and the doctors were concerned. He rubbed his forehead, recalling what the doctors had told him. Natasha might not be able to have more children because of her health. This thought swirled in his mind. Maybe I should agree with Charity, he considered. If Natasha can't have more children, what's the point of keeping her on life support? Just then, Charity walked into the living room, her smile bright and her energy infectious. "Hey there, darling. How was your day?" she asked, plopping down beside him on the couch. "It was okay," Raymond replied, forcing a smile. "I've been thinking about, what we talked about." Charity's eyes sparkled with excitement. "Oh, you mean about Natasha? Are you ready to tell the doctor to take her off life support?" Raymond didn't hesitate. "Yes, I'm going to tell the doctor tomorrow. It's the best choice for all of us." Charity clapped her hands in delight. "Oh, Raymond, this is amazing. I can't wait for us to start our life together. Just think, no more worrying about Natasha." Raymond smirked, picturing how much easier things would be without Natasha's constant presence. "Exactly. And if Natasha comes out of this coma and finds out I'm having a child with you, she'll definitely want a divorce. That means splitting my properties, and I'm not willing to do that," he said, feeling a sense of relief wash over him. Charity grinned, completely on board with his plan. "You're so smart. We can build our future without her in the way." As Charity rambled on about their upcoming plans, Raymond let her enthusiasm wash over him. He felt no guilt, only excitement about the future they could have together. He thought about all the things they could do without Natasha around, like travel, buy new things, and enjoy life without the burden of having to take care of her. "Just think of all the fun we'll have," Charity exclaimed, lost in her dreams of the future. Raymond smiled at her joy, feeling a strange thrill at the thought of a fresh start. He was ready to make the decision that would change everything. This is going to work out perfectly, he thought, and he couldn't wait to take the first step tomorrow. Raymond arrived at the hospital the next day, determined to speak with the doctor about Natasha. He walked into the doctor's office and said, "I want you to remove my wife from life support." The doctor looked surprised. "Mr. Raymond, she has only been in a coma for a few days. Are you sure you want to do this?" Raymond replied, "Yes, I am sure. I don't want her to stay like this any longer." The doctor hesitated. "I understand this is difficult, but can you give her a little more time? I recommend waiting 2 weeks. If she doesn't wake up by then, we can discuss removing the life support." Raymond considered the doctor's suggestion. He didn't want to wait, but he also wanted to seem reasonable. He finally agreed, saying, "Fine. 2 weeks. But I want to proceed after that." The doctor nodded, concerned about Raymond's decision. "I thought you loved your wife. Are you sure this is what you want?" Raymond replied, "Yes, I am sure. I don't want her to suffer more than this." Raymond left the office, feeling a mixture of relief and excitement. He drove home, thinking about how life would change once Natasha was gone. He could finally be with Charity without any worries. Later that night, Raymond reflected on his decision. He felt satisfied with his choice and focused on his plans for the future. In his mind, he had made the right call, and he was determined to move forward with his life. Days later, in the hospital, the doctor sat in his office with one of the nurses, Sarah. He looked troubled as he shared his concerns about Raymond. "I don't trust him," he said. "He seems too eager to remove Natasha from life support." Sarah nodded, understanding his worries. "It does seem strange. Usually families want to give their loved ones as much time as possible. Why would he want to rush it?" The doctor leaned back in his chair, deep in thought. "Exactly. Natasha just went into a coma. It feels like Raymond is more focused on his own life and plans than on his wife's recovery." Sarah frowned. "So what should we do?" The doctor sat up straight. "We need to keep a close eye on him whenever he visits. Let's make sure someone is always with Natasha while he's here. We can't let anything happen to her." Sarah agreed. "That sounds like a good plan. I will make sure the other nurses know to watch him closely." 2 weeks later, Raymond went to the doctor again, anger boiling inside him. He burst into the office, demanding to know why the doctor was delaying the removal of Natasha from life support. The doctor calmly explained that he had changed his mind. He wanted to give Natasha 1 month to see if she would wake up, because she had shown some signs of movement. Raymond left the office, fuming with frustration. When he got home, Charity was waiting for him, her expression tense. She asked what the doctor had said, and Raymond told her about the delay. She was just as angry, insisting that they needed to think of another way to deal with Natasha. Raymond felt cornered and helpless. He didn't know what else they could do. Charity then suggested something drastic. She said she could inject Natasha and make it look like an accident. This way, Natasha wouldn't be a problem anymore, and Raymond would be free to marry her. Raymond was taken by surprise. He hesitated for a moment, realizing how serious her idea was. But the thought of being with Charity and escaping his situation with Natasha was tempting. After a moment, he reluctantly agreed, saying they had to be careful. Charity assured him she would handle everything carefully. Charity marched into the hospital, her thoughts racing. She needed to see Natasha, nothing would stand in her way. She headed straight to Natasha's room, her eyes fixed ahead. But as she reached the door, a nurse stepped in front of her. The nurse explained politely but firmly that Natasha wasn't allowed any visitors without permission from the doctor. The nurse added that only immediate family members were allowed, and even they had strict visiting hours. Charity felt her temper rise. She insisted she was practically family, but the nurse stayed calm, repeating that she was following the doctor's orders. Fuming, Charity glanced around, trying to think of another excuse to get inside. She tried to claim she was there to bring something important for Natasha's recovery, but the nurse remained firm, not swayed by Charity's arguments. Feeling defeated and seething with frustration, Charity stormed down the hallway, her mind spinning with anger. She could feel the eyes of the hospital staff on her, adding to her irritation. As she exited the hospital, Charity made up her mind that this setback wouldn't stop her. If she couldn't get to Natasha this time, she would find another way. When Charity got home from the hospital, she was full of anger. She found Naya and Aliyah and began yelling at them. Her face was hard and her words were cold and mean. She called them terrible names, saying they were witches and blaming them for their mother's sickness. She told them it was their fault that Natasha was in a coma, saying that they had brought bad luck to their family. Aliyah was hurt and scared. She didn't understand why Charity was being so cruel. She felt tears in her eyes, but she tried to be brave for her little sister, Naya, who clung to her, looking frightened and confused. Aliyah knew this wasn't true. They loved their mother and only wanted her to get better. Later, when their father Raymond came home, Aliyah thought maybe he could help. She went up to him and told him everything Charity had said. She told him about the hurtful names and how Charity blamed them for their mother's sickness. Aliyah hoped her father would be angry at Charity, that he would protect them and tell Charity to stop. But Raymond looked tired and didn't seem to care. He barely listened and told Aliyah to be quiet, to leave him alone. He didn't stand up for them, didn't stop Charity from saying those terrible things. His words made Aliyah feel even more alone. She wanted to cry, but she held it in for Naya's sake. With no one to protect them, Aliyah and Naya had to face Charity's anger alone. Charity continued to treat them harshly, making their days feel long and sad. The two sisters held on to each other, trying to stay strong and hoping for the day their mother would wake up and make everything better again. Charity, still furious after being turned away at the hospital, decided to confront Raymond. She found him in the living room, her face twisted with anger. She told him that since the doctor wouldn't allow her into Natasha's room, she couldn't give Natasha the injection herself. She demanded that Raymond do it instead, insisting he had better access to his wife and wouldn't be questioned by the hospital staff. Raymond looked at her, shaking his head. He didn't want to be the one to do it. The idea made him nervous, and he quickly refused. Charity's face grew even angrier, and she crossed her arms, declaring that if he wouldn't do it, she would have no choice but to end her pregnancy. Raymond paused, eyeing her with suspicion. He asked how he could even be sure she was pregnant in the first place, reminding her that he had suggested they go to the hospital together to confirm it, but she had always made excuses. He felt that maybe she was just saying this to manipulate him, and he told her so. Charity's face turned red with rage. She started shouting, calling him names, saying he was a useless, senseless man for doubting her. She demanded to know why he was questioning her after everything they'd talked about. Raymond didn't know what to believe anymore. Charity's anger was so intense that he wondered if she was really telling the truth or just trying to get what she wanted by any means necessary. But even as she raged, Raymond stayed silent, thinking about everything that had happened. Charity stormed out of the room, furious that he hadn't given her the answer she wanted. Determined, Raymond went back to the hospital the next day, pushing for the doctor to take Natasha off life support. But this time, the doctor had had enough. He looked Raymond straight in the eye and told him that he'd noticed his constant requests and strange behavior, and it didn't feel right. The doctor said he'd decided to give Natasha every chance to recover, especially after seeing signs that she might be improving. When Raymond tried to argue, the doctor cut him off. He warned that if Raymond came back with the same request, he would involve the authorities. The doctor explained that it was his duty to protect his patients, and he was growing more and more suspicious of Raymond's intentions. The words stung, and Raymond felt a spark of panic. He realized the doctor wasn't going to budge easily. Raymond returned home feeling frustrated and cornered, dreading how Charity would react when he told her. Raymond walked into the house, tired and frustrated after his latest visit to the hospital. He couldn't believe how difficult things had become. But when he entered the living room, he was shocked. Charity was sitting there, talking to a man he had never seen before. The man looked comfortable, laughing with her, and it didn't seem like they had just met. Charity noticed Raymond standing there and quickly jumped up, surprised to see him back so early. She smiled awkwardly and introduced the man as her cousin. Raymond felt suspicious. He didn't know Charity to have any family close by, and something didn't feel right. Still, he held back his questions and turned to go into the bedroom, trying to clear his head. Charity followed him, trying to explain that the man was just her cousin, but Raymond didn't respond. He felt frustrated, like he couldn't trust anything she was saying. Deciding to get some air, he grabbed his keys and headed out to pick up Aaliyah and Naya from school, hoping some time with his daughters would calm him down. But when he got to the school, his heart skipped a beat. The teacher told him that their mother had already picked them up. This didn't make any sense. Natasha was still in the hospital, unable to even sit up, let alone pick the girls up from school. Who could have taken his daughters? With worry clouding his mind, Raymond rushed to the hospital, thinking maybe he could get some answers. But when he arrived and asked to see Natasha, the staff at the hospital told him he wasn't allowed in. It felt like his whole world was closing in on him. His daughters were missing, Natasha was unreachable, and he felt like he was losing control over everything. The stress was too much. When he finally returned home, he found Charity waiting for him, but he had reached his limit. He confronted her, demanding to know what was going on. After a few moments, Charity blurted out the truth. She was pregnant, but the child wasn't his. Her words hit him like a punch to the chest. All this time she had been lying to him, playing with his emotions and tearing his family apart for her own selfish reasons. Anger surged through him. He couldn't believe the betrayal, the lies, and the games. Before he knew it, in a moment of uncontrollable rage, he shoved her. Charity stumbled back, lost her balance, and fell to the floor, lying still and silent. Raymond's anger faded instantly, replaced by panic and regret. He didn't mean for this to happen, he just felt so betrayed and overwhelmed. In a daze, he picked her up, feeling the heavy weight of his actions settle over him. His mind was racing, his heart pounding as he carried her outside to his car. Carefully, he placed her in the back seat, his hands shaking as he closed the door. The house was eerily quiet, and he felt the crushing weight of his choices. Raymond sat behind the wheel, staring into the distance, unsure of what to do next. His life had spiraled out of control, and now he was left alone, surrounded by the mess his choices had created. Raymond's heart pounded as he drove Charity to the hospital. His mind was filled with fear and regret, replaying what had just happened at home. The road felt endless, and he gripped the steering wheel, praying silently that somehow everything would be okay. When he finally reached the hospital, Raymond jumped out and called for help. Nurses and doctors quickly rushed over, taking Charity from the car and onto a stretcher. He waited, pacing back and forth in the waiting room, his hands shaking and his heart heavy. After what felt like an eternity, a doctor approached him, his face serious. Raymond's heart sank as the doctor gently told him the news. Charity was gone. She hadn't survived the fall. A wave of shock hit Raymond. His knees felt weak, and he could barely process what the doctor was saying. All his anger, frustration, and confusion had led to this tragic moment. He thought about everything, the lies, the betrayal, and now, the loss. As Raymond walked out of the hospital, he froze in shock. Standing right there, alive and well, was Natasha. She looked healthier than ever, with a calm strength in her eyes that he hadn't seen before. He tried to speak, but she stopped him with a raised hand, her gaze steady and determined. In a clear, steady voice, Natasha began explaining everything. One day at home, she had caught Charity quietly adding something suspicious to her food. At first, Natasha was stunned, unable to believe that Charity was trying to harm her. But instead of confronting her, Natasha had carefully planned her next steps. She had gone to the doctor and, together, they came up with a plan. The doctor helped her pretend she was developing kidney problems. Eventually, they faked her coma, allowing her to stay hidden in the hospital, watching and learning what Raymond and Charity would do next. Raymond's face turned pale as Natasha recounted each detail, her calmness making every word hit harder. He tried to explain, to defend himself, but Natasha continued without pausing. She told him how heartbroken she'd been to discover that, rather than protect her, he'd believed Charity's lies and sided with her. "I watched everything, Raymond," Natasha said, her voice filled with disappointment. "I saw how quickly you wanted to end things, how you chose her over me." Raymond, desperate to undo the damage, began apologizing. But Natasha shook her head, telling him it was too late. She'd already made up her mind, and there was no turning back. "I'll be sending you the divorce papers," she said firmly. "This is what you wanted, isn't it?" As she turned to leave, Natasha looked back and told him she was safe, her girls were safe, and they would be starting a new life without him. Raymond, defeated and overwhelmed, watched her walk away. Later that night, he drove home in a daze, his mind clouded with regret. In his distracted state, he didn't notice a parked trailer ahead. His car crashed into it with a loud impact, and by the time help arrived, Raymond was pronounced dead. A year passed, and Natasha had moved on with her life. She had found happiness again, marrying a kind and caring man who respected her and brought peace to her life. Together they built a warm, loving home for her daughters, free from the pain of the past. Natasha and her family lived happily ever after, grateful for a second chance at life and love. Dear viewers, what lessons did you take away from this dramatic tale? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed the story, give us a thumbs up, share it with friends, and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss out on our latest updates. Thanks for watching and stay blessed.